And good evening, everybody, and welcome to Going Nuclear, full blown coverage of the land. I am Ethan Greenberg, and alongside of me is my co host, Mike Rasinski. Mike, how are we doing this evening? Can you hear me, Mike? Are we there, Mike? And are having some technical difficulties. Mike, aha, and stick with us here for one moment. Mike, are you there? All right, so we are having a bit of a technical difficulty here, and hopefully we can get things back on track here momentarily. We were having some internet connection issues, and again, apologize for that. Welcome to Going Nuclear, full blown coverage of the land. And let's try again here. Hopefully, Mike will join in. Mike, are
All
you
right,
with me?
that's better. I'm in.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know. Well, I noticed my thing was on the wrong connection. So what a way to start. We're off to a banging start.
Hopefully, the Cavs start off better than we just did.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the Cavs game 3 will be underway momentarily down in Orlando. Cavs up 2-0 on the Magic in the series. What do you think of how things have gone so far for the Cavs being up 2-0?
Well, this is the ugliest way you could be up 2-0. They have not played well at all, uh, yet they've dominated the Magic. I think they've been very lucky that they got the Magic in the first round. Maybe losing that last game was good after all.
Exactly.
They have Yes, I'm sorry. They have not played well. Too many turnovers, not enough good shooting, but they've led by double digits in the second quarter for every game, which has been amazing. It's not passing the eye test, but it's working.
Absolutely. They've gone wire to wire victories in both games 1 and 2. Yet I don't know that I felt that comfortable as I was watching them. Each game they had moments where the Magic started making runs and they were closing in. In game 1 they had a 20-point lead and it got whittled down to 9 points. And my biggest gripe was, what is JB doing on the sideline? Darius Garland and whomever, and we're going to get to the Garland conversation here shortly, is getting trapped just beyond half court, pressure, turning the ball over. What are you saving the timeouts for? You got 4 timeouts. We're up by, what are you doing? What in the
Yep.
world are you doing? I didn't like that move by JB. It bothered me a lot. And then in game 2, again, you got up over 20 points. But then you suddenly let the Magic go on this great run. They're getting 4-point plays. I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, and you know what else is frustrating with the coach, and but all teams do this, is the shortened lineup in the playoffs. They end up playing 8, maybe
Yes.
9 guys, and the key pieces that contributed in the regular season just sit and get cold. So if they need them, I don't think they're ready to go in. Now, this isn't JB is not the only coach that does this. All NBA coaches do this, but it's frustrating to see. You don't see a lot of Sam Merrill, who, as we see with the stat show, we need some good 3-pointers out there. Struess and Niang are not producing on the line, outside the line there. They're doing some good things, but what we need is some 3-pointers. And we have a guy that can hit them just sitting on the bench.
Yeah, he came in for a very short stint in game number 1. Sam Merrill came in for 4 minutes, and they were blanketing him. He wasn't able to do much of anything, and then he went and sat on the bench, and that's it. And as you said, it is a very short rotation. On the bench, we're talking about what, 3 guys off the bench: Okoro, Niang, and Levert,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not seeing anybody else. And maybe it's a matter of there's going to come a time when other guys are going to need to come in. On one hand, you've got Niang, who's not shooting worth squat. On the other hand, he does bring a little bit of intensity defensively. I like that from him. I don't know who you'd swap out there. If you put in Merrill's a bit of a defensive liability, in my opinion.
Yeah, and luckily the Magic have not been shooting that well at all. I think they've been below at least 3-point percentage, below 30% both games, and for overall field goal percentage has been awful as well. So we've lucked out a little bit for that. We'll see how they do at home this time. But one thing, we've kind of ragged on the Cavs a little bit, even though they've kind of dominated. I guess we got to talk about the good things too, and that's both Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, especially Allen, have been playing great. I think I just saw the stat. He's the first player in about 9 years for the Cavs to have back-to-back 15 rebound games in playoff games. Yeah, he's been a monster on the boards, and that's really, I think, what saved him.
It really has. And that was the crazy thing, because last year we talked about the lack of physicality and the toughness in the playoffs when New York just seemed to really rough us up. And it's really apparent that it's not just the Cavs that can get beat at that style of play, because they're doing the same thing to the Philadelphia 76ers. That was a crazy ending to that game the other night as well. But on the boards, Cavs were plus 14 on the boards in game one, 54-40, and they were plus 7 on the boards in game number 2. Fortunately, we won the turnover battle in game 2, but not in game 1. I don't know what to make so far. I'm glad we're up 2-0, but as you said, this is an ugly way to win. It really is an ugly way to win.
Yeah, and I was just looking at it. I'm glad you mentioned the turnovers. 18 in game 1 and 15 in game 2. I was just taking a peek at some of the other games and their stats, and most other teams are turning it over, 8 to 12 times maybe a game, the Knicks and the 76ers, for example. So we're still winning with that level of turnover, which is surprising. They're going to have, you advance in the playoffs, you're going to have to tighten that up.
Definitely. That is 100% on the mark. So tonight, the Cavs are just about to get underway. Looks like the opening tip is off there. And I know that, first of all, the big topic around local sports, I don't know how much you heard of this. Again, you and I are both outside of Northeast Ohio and keep up with our sports, over the internet and everything like that. But the big discussion this morning on 92.3 The Fan, there were the people who were griping about being able to watch the game on the Bally Sports app and it not working. And if you're not there, they made some lame excuse like, oh, people are sharing passwords and it's out of. I'm like, oh, come on. This has been an ongoing problem for like 2 years or more, where people can't get what they need on the Bally Sports app. It doesn't work when they want it to. And the problem is, all these folks, call me old, and we'll get to the I'm too old for this later, but call me old school. I'll just stick with cable, okay? I'm just going to have this glorious thing called cable, which gives me all the things I want in one place. I don't want to have to search 5 different streaming services to find my stupid show, or to have this one or that one. Just let me have it in one place.
I think you have combined the going nuclear with the I'm too old all in one segment. So well done. What's funny is it's actually easier to watch Cleveland sports outside of Cleveland than it is inside, because if you're outside the local market, you can pay NBA.com,
right.
You can YouTube TV for football, MLB.com for the Guardians, and you can stream all of the games. You can't do that inside the Cleveland market because of how the streaming rights work, which is, in my opinion, ridiculous.
Oh, it's horrible. It really is. And the fact that both the Cavs and the Guardians are tied into this Bally Sports nonsense is just crazy. I mean, that company is a royal flush. That company is just royal trash, and they need to go away. But I don't know. I mean, can you bring me back to some old Sports Time Ohio? Do you remember back in the day when it was Sports Channel in like the mid or early 90s, and you turn it on and there was no programming on until like 7:00 p.m. and it just ran a crawl and the stats and such all day?
Oh, I'll do one better. Do you remember Channel 43, the old antenna? You didn't even need cable. It's just Channel 43, and that's how you got the old Indians games.
Exactly. Tribe, look at my team. The Tribe is alive in 85. Tribe, look at my. Oh, yeah, it's the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd. Watch the fun. It's here, everyone. Baseball with the Tribe. Looking good on Channel 43.
Right.
I mean,
you know it.
Right. I mean, Jack Corrigan, he was great. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
And again, that's how you know we're old.
Yeah, and there it is. There it is. Okay, so early on, if you're wondering, folks, I'm sure that you're glued to us because we're just so entertaining. It looks like the Cavs had that big 2-0 advantage. Oh, they're lighting them up right now. But it has definitely been a physical and a challenging, muck it up type of series, which is what we kind of expected would happen. And the question now is, You talked about the shooting percentage and where the Magic have been over the first couple of games. Are they going to be able to pick that up on their home floor where they were 29-12 this season?
Yeah, and I believe that's the third best home record in the NBA as well. So we will see. Now I got that game on right now, and so far they're 0 for everything. I think 0 for 5, 0 for 6. So they're not doing much better as we now have a 4-0 lead. So it's
Right.
not looking like that, but it is early. I do wonder how much we talked about it last week. Playoff experience matters. The Cavs have it. The Magic are still a young team. They're essentially the Cavs from last year, and they'll be better next year, I'm sure. But right now, that it's amazing. I think how much this playoff experience that the Cavs built last year is helping, and maybe that Knicks loss is motivation for them too. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise for this year. We'll see.
We shall see. And I think the fact that you also added not just the players that were here last year, but the players you brought in, we talked about it a little bit earlier. We're talking about Niang hasn't been good. His shooting has not been good. Strus, neither is his, but he brings the playoff experience. He went to the finals with the Heat last year. Niang has considerable playoff experience. Both are very helpful, and the Cavs are going to need that to be as they move forward, not just in this series, but moving forward if they are able to close this one out. So you were talking, one of my considerations would be will they start shooting the three ball better down in Orlando? When is that going to break? Is it because of the defensive intensity that Orlando puts on you that guys are missing their shots, or is it just bad luck?
I think it's just bad luck. I just think they're not making the shots. It seems to me that they have a lot of open looks, and they're just not hitting. I don't really know what else to blame it on other than that. To tell you the truth, it seems like a lot of them are just wide open. And to tell you the truth, it looks like the Magic have a lot of wide open threes as well. They're just not a good 3-point shooting team.
And that therein lies something that concerned me and has concerned me overall for the Cavs throughout the season is that you see a lot of guys with some wide ass open threes. And that
Hmm.
concerns me when you get to other opponents that are better shooting. Maybe it's a defensive strategy to sag off these guys a little bit, clog up the paint, and make them shoot. So I don't know which it is. I don't know. As long as it works, I suppose. Um, and we
Well, as
talked.
of now, oh,
Mhm.
sorry. As of now, with 7 minutes and 52 seconds left in the first quarter, no team has made a three, and Orlando shooting 9.1%.
Oh,
So we've got that going for us.
yes, I love it. I love it. Um, and we talked a little bit about the short rotation. One guy who is absent, and the Cavs put out a statement yesterday about Dean Wade, just indicating he's out for he will not play in the first round, and you know, we don't know what's going on. It's go to do has apparently has to do with his knee. How important of a player was he just throughout the season, and could he be in this rotation?
I think so. I think he was probably second, third off the bench for JB. He would definitely be in this rotation, especially because of the defensive acumen that he brings. It's going to be a big loss. It's something that I'm sure they can overcome against the Magic. It'd be great if we can get him back in the second round because defense. I mean, that's what's going to win the game, in my opinion. If they end up playing the Celtics, although the Celtics are tied 1-1 right now too, so who knows? And they apparently can't beat the Heat in the playoffs, but I'm sure they'll get him in the end. But it would be great to get him back for the second round. But how good is he going to be? Is he going to be on a minutes restriction? He's been out of the game for what, almost a month, maybe more than a month now. So he's
Right.
gonna have to condition himself back into it. So it'll be interesting to see if and what difference he can make if he does come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're obviously working well, all right, or all right now without him, but certainly his presence would be helpful, of course. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about the turnovers for the Cavs, and we talked about, and we've talked about just Darius Garland. Where is he at on this team? And so, as you and I talked, I decided to do a little exercise and pull up a list of statistics of some former Cavs point guards and a couple of Hall of Famers, NBA Hall of Famers, to kind of see where Darius Garland matched up with these guys. And So the first thing I did, I guess the biggest thing to me is I was looking at the field goal percentage and then the assist to turnover ratio. So you look at, let's talk about the Hall of Famers. John Stockton, I mean, he was incredible. 10 and a half assists a game to 2.8 turnovers per game. All not quite, but more than a 4-to-1 ratio there. That's amazing. None of the other guys are really that close. Isaiah Thomas, again a Hall of Famer, 9.3 assists per ball game to 3.8 turnovers. So that is not as impressive, but still 9.3 assists per game. Is it just a matter of the role, the change in the role of the point guard nowadays? I don't know.
It's probably has something to do with it too, because you don't really see many guys averaging that anymore. Although those are all-star numbers, so they were something special as well.
Definitely. So then I turned around. I looked, okay, at former Cavs standout guards. We had Mark Price, the Candyman Terrell Brandon, and Andre Miller. All very good, as well, and also Kyrie Irving. Obviously the first three, Brandon, Price, Miller, phenomenal Cavs, great in their days here. Mark Price, not only was he efficient on the floor, 6.7 assists to just 2.5 turnovers per ball game. That's almost 3-to-1. He shot 47% from the field, 40 from 3-point, and 90% at the line. Those are some really good numbers. You barely dropped off with Terrell Brandon. He didn't shoot quite as well, but 44 from the field, 35 from 3, 87 at the foul line, and 6.1 assists to just 2 turnovers per game. I mean, those are incredible. And now let's look at Darius Garland. Let's focus on the here and now. He shoots 44% from the field. That's, on the low end of the folks I pulled up here. 38% from 3. That's pretty good. That's on the higher end. 86% at the foul line. Excellent. You got that's great. Here's the problem. 6.7 turnover or assists per game, 3.1 turnovers per game in his career. It's only a 2-to-1 ratio. And he seems to make errors and turnovers at critical moments in the game. And I don't know if he's going to get any better than this or not.
That's a great question. Is this his ceiling, or does he still have room to grow? Now, what is this? His 5th NBA season, I believe. So, and I think he's 24 years old. So in my opinion, I think he still does have room to grow. I mean, we can look at somebody as great as LeBron James and see how long it took him. Really, he was great, from year one, but how long it took him to really develop and get into lead a championship team. So I think there is still room for him to grow. But you hit it right on the head there. The most frustrating thing is the turnovers late in the game when he goes isolation basketball. He jumps. He doesn't know where he's going to throw it. And it just seems to happen in the fourth quarter with like 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, the careless turnovers are crazy. It's maddening. It's absolutely maddening. And then you start to think about it, and this is where we're going to have a lot of discussion in the offseason about what to do with the makeup of this roster. When the Cavs we talked about this when the Cavs were without Mobley and Garland, is when they were playing incredibly well in the middle of the season and won 18 out of 20 games. And so Mitchell's basically doing all your work at the point. And I mean, I didn't look at the turnover numbers during that time frame, but it just seems to me that there's something isn't right. And it's a question of, is it a fit thing in terms of the roster makeup, or is it just simply who Darius Garland is as a player? And then what do you do? Is he a movable piece? Would if the Cavs, my opinion is, if the Cavs locked up were able to extend Donovan Mitchell, I would be open to trading Garland. What say you?
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all, because the one thing we know about is Garland's not a closer. Mitchell is a closer, and you need that on a team. That's been proven this year with, when both of them were out at different times. It's a weird makeup when they're both on the floor too at the same time. I think a lot of times you see Mitchell deferring to Garland, which sometimes that is infuriating. And I know Mitchell sometimes plays that role. He just wants to get other people involved. I don't hate that idea of moving on from Garland if we can lock up Mitchell. On the other hand, I'll just play contrarian here for a little bit though.
Sure.
Is we have Garland locked up for 4 more years, I think. It's a max contract right now, but if he is going to get better, do we really want to give up on that talent if we think he has not hit his ceiling?
Well, and I guess therein lies. I mean, that's such a great. This is why it's good. This is good for fodder. Great discussion here. We're sitting at the bar having this discussion. I'm loving it. No, I really don't know what the right answer is, but it certainly seems that you've got a situation. It might just be one of those things where you have to do what's best for everybody. And I'll kind of try and make my final point on this. Remember when the Cavs had Mark Price and a point guard turned out to be pretty darn good, a guy by the name of Kevin Johnson behind him. And they moved on from Kevin Johnson. He had a pretty darn good career.
Yes, he did.
In Phoenix. He was an amazing player, but we didn't need 2 guys. We had Mark Price. We didn't need Kevin Johnson, and Steve Kerr filled a different role. Craig Elo was a different role. I just feel like there's too many people trying to kind of do the same thing. And so I think that we're going to have to wait and see how it goes. Heck, I mean, this team could make this huge run in the playoffs. We really don't know yet. And we'll see how these other matchups shake down. And they might say, we're not taking it apart. We think we've got what we need here and we can get there. It's always something. It's always something.
Yep.
And
I
was just going to say, you can't be content.
No, you can't. Now, one other thing, my last point with Darius Garland, 1 for 2 in free throws in this series. For a point guard to only have 2 free throws in 2 games, like your premier point guard, that tells me he's not driving to the rim like Mitchell does. And I don't know if it's because he's scared because he, fractured his face earlier, if he's just not quite in, shape to drive the ball. I don't know what it is, but the 2 free throws in 2 games is just crazy to me for how many minutes he plays.
Yeah, that's not good. You've got to be aggressive. I mean, so many good things happen when you go to the hole. You drive the basketball, a couple of things are going to happen. You're going to make a shot. You're going to get fouled and go to the foul line, or you're going to draw an extra defender and you're going to kick it out to a wide open 3-point shooter who should at least 3 to 4 out of 10 times make an open 3. We've got the guys to do that. We absolutely have the guys to do that. And I want to see more of it. That I know I'm old school basketball, but
I'm with you on that.
I kind of think it works. And just to touch on it real quick, and generally, the NBA playoffs have been crazy. I mean, these games have been phenomenal. The game the other night with Philadelphia and New York, that was a stunner.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I should do it now, but that's my going nuCLEar point for the night.
All right, well, hold that thought. Hold that thought.
All right, I'll hold it to the end, but it is that game, and I'll tell you. I'll explain it why at the end.
Oh, fantastic! I cannot wait to hear that. And I mean, obviously, there are a lot of good series going on. It seems like there's going to be some separation there. The LA and Denver series has been fantastic, and I think I'm getting too old for this segment. We'll focus on something along the lines of the Denver LA. So stay tuned for that. So we move from the hardwood and we head over to the corner of Carnegie and Ontario to talk about the Gardos. Got the old Gardos there. They are a winner this afternoon in matinee baseball over the Boston Red Sox, 6-4. Jose with the grand salami, and a 6-4 win, a gutsy win, because Tristan McKenzie, he's battling. He is battling. He pitched 4 innings, 75 pitches for McKenzie today. I mean, he had a great strike to ball ratio. I think it was 2-1. And they were saying on the broadcast, I was listening to Tom Hamilton and Jim Rosenhaus, and they were saying he was, just really going after him with the fastball. But we found out after last week's show, we started talking about the injuries, the year of the injury. And it comes to pass that Zach Meisel and Jason Lloyd had done a story in The Athletic revealing that McKenzie has an elbow injury, a torn ligament in his elbow. How long is this sustainable?
That's a great question, and I wish I had an answer for you. He's pitching though, and it seems like he's doing all right. I wonder if some of these early struggles this year, and he's not horrible, but I wonder if some of the early struggles are just from having all of last year off and rebuilding up to that, both not only physically but mentally too, of how you pitch in an MLB game.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, they were talking in an article, or I read it. His velocity was down from even from last year and a couple of years ago. He was up, 2 years ago, he was hitting about 92 on his fastball. Now he's about 90. I don't know. I think, it might be one of those things where pitchers now, maybe they need to, we talked about this last week. They're doing so much different stuff and they're trying to put all this crazy spin on the ball. Maybe it needs to be more about, okay, look, let's focus on hitting our targets. Let's focus on being precise and mixing up our pitches well and really strategizing. And I think that part of that comes with the manager, the catcher. Everybody's got to be on the same page there to work these guys through it. But I'm a little bit concerned about him. I'm concerned. Gavin Williams, I was looking at him like, all right, he's making his way back. He had a simulated game in Arizona, and yeah, he had the elbow soreness again, so he had to get an injection. May not see him till sometime in June. So they are really going to have to rally the troops in terms of who's going to pitch, who's going to get us through so that we don't wear out the bullpen. But how impressive still, or again, is the Guardians lineup? I mean, they are really surprising.
They really are, and I'm trying to pull up some stats right now too. I believe they're like number 3 in ERA for pitching, and they're 8th, I believe, in all of baseball for average. And they're still tops for run differential.
Yes.
I mean, they just have a really balanced right now pitching and hitting, which is great to see. I mean, even Atlanta, who is challenging them right now for best record in all of baseball, does not have that great. They're a great hitting team, and their pitching is okay, but it's not as good as the Guardians. I just love how balanced they are. That they're playing some close games. They're clutch. I mean, they're a fun team to watch. And who would have thought that this series against Atlanta coming up starting tomorrow is going to be the 2 top teams in baseball playing each other right now? It's probably hopefully the best series we've seen all year.
Yeah, this is going to be, as much as the Guardians against the Yankees was a litmus test. This series against Atlanta, certainly on the road, another very big challenge as the Guardians will hit the road to take on Atlanta over the weekend, the top 2 records in Major League Baseball. I think Kansas City was winning a little while ago. They were in a rain delay. Assuming they hold on to win, the lead first place in the Central will be 2.5 games. We talked a little bit about the hitting. Stephen Kwan, he's in the top 10 of all of Major League Baseball. He is hitting .346. He's also in the top 5 for total hits. He's got 36. Ramirez is tied for second in RBI, 23 RBI. And as you mentioned, the run differential currently first in all of Major League Baseball. What about, a couple guys that had some spot starts or some opportunities to pitch. Xavier Curry and Ben Lively really have shown very nicely in their starts. Amazingly enough, combined, all three of their starts have been against the Red Sox. Lively kind of unfortunately came out on the bad end or the short end of the stick when he was pitching against the Red Sox because Houck was pitching both times for Boston and really gave the Guardians difficulties. And looks like Orlando's found their shot. Can we withstand the run? Down by 5 on my clock here. I don't know about on yours. You might be slightly.
I got the game streaming here. End of the first quarter, they're down by 10.
Okay, that's not good.
No, and the stats here, Orlando shooting an okay 35.7% from 3. The Cavs are shooting 8.3% from 3. And I think that's the difference in the game right now. We're also getting out rebounded by 5, which is a little surprising.
Yeah, that is certainly not good, but it's not insurmountable. It is early, and the key here is, can they correct course? Obviously, the Magic feeling the home bump, and they're playing well, so we've got to be able to withstand that early punch that they're going to come out with and see if we can make a run here. So again, Xavier Curry, Ben Lively have done very nicely in a few starts. Are they going to be enough to carry us? Do we have any other moves? Because Carlos Carrasco, I think the cookie is crumbling on Cookie.
I'm not giving up on him yet. I think he's still got some good innings left. I'll tell you what, though. What was it, 3 years ago in the draft? I think the Guardians took 20 of the 21 players, and I might be getting these numbers wrong, but it was like 21 players they picked were pitchers.
Wow.
So I thought at that time that was a ridiculous draft strategy, but that may be the way to go in the future because they have all these talented guys they keep bringing up. How is their bullpen so good, and how do they keep getting these starters from Columbus? It's these guys that they've drafted. They're not trading for them. They're developing them, and they've already proven they're a pitching factory. And now that they have all these young arms that are 2 to 3 years in their system, and we're showing the fruits of those draft picks, which is pretty amazing. So I got to hand it to the GM and whoever runs their draft board for doing that. It seems to have worked.
Yeah, they certainly have done well when it comes to pitching. I mean, how many organizations have had like such a sustained level of success in pitching with all these Cy Young Award winners that have come through our system? I don't know. I mean, whether or not they won a Cy Young, I'd have to look back and reference. I don't want to shoot from the hip here too much, but dating back, Bartolo Colon, CC Sabathia, you've got Cliff Lee, Kluber, and Bieber. I mean, that's a pretty strong line of success there. And we've had some other guys that have been, right up there as well. I mean, who can forget? Now, I'm trying to think. Was it Roberto Hernandez? But his name was something else. Do you remember it?
Fausto Carmona.
Fausto Carmona. You got it. You win the prize here, Mike, for the Fausto Carmona. Right. What about, who can forget, Jarrett Wright?
Oh, he had a 101-mile fastball before everybody started throwing 101-mile-per-hour fastballs.
Yeah, during that magical 1997 run, as we discussed last week, which ended up coming up short. But yeah, so the Guardians, obviously, they are continuing to surprise us. And it was amazing listening to the game, how there's so much time to talk about anything and everything other than baseball during a baseball broadcast. I think Tom and, Hamilton and Rosenhaus had time to make fun of people who do mock drafts. I thought that was great. I was enjoying that. And I was really surprised, though, as they were that the Guardians hit. So let's see, we got 2 home runs in the 5-run inning, the grand slam by Ramirez and gosh, why I'm just completely blanking Brennan with the solo shot.
Yep.
But they were talking about the wind blowing in. It was very cold, generally speaking, for late April in Cleveland. So it was, I guess we should feel fortunate that we were able to power some balls out there. And I'm glad to see it. But of course, Boston, they are in trouble in their rotation. Today was a second bullpen game day, or I think I'm getting my words all twisted up. But yes, it was the second day in a row of a bullpen game for the Red Sox, and it showed. And I'm glad the Guardians were able to get out early and then hold on late.
Yeah, and
So,
I will say too. I just saw today that this is the best start the Guardians have ever had, tied with the 1999 team. 11 games over 500 right now. And that 99 team finished 32 games above 500. First, in the AL Central, and then I'm sure we all remember lost to Boston in the ALDS with a 2-0 series lead, and then they lost the next three. And the quick story I have for that is I actually went to Game 5 of that series. Now, when I got the tickets right as the playoffs started, after Game 2, I'm like, great, these are wasted tickets. There's no way we're going to get to a Game 5. Then they lose their next two, and I'm like, okay, well, I get to go see a Game 5. There's no way they're losing this game at home. And then what do? They just blow it. What a disappointing season to, as I've heard it called, one of the greatest teams to never win the World Series. They were just a beast in '99, and they just couldn't get it done, which was kind of the end of that great reign in the '90s.
it was. I mean, although the next season they were very good. I believe, yeah, was it in 2000 or 2001 when we lost to Seattle in the
2000 they did not make the playoffs. In 01 they did before they started going on that long stretch of rebuild.
Right. And that was a great team. You think about the guys that they brought in at different points: David Justice, Juan Gonzalez, Robbie Alomar. I mean, and that's what's frustrating, I think, about the current status of things and the ownership, is that it seemed like back then we were willing to spend and bring in some high priced free agents and see what we, not just bring them in for like half a year after the trade deadline and get Jay Bruce or something like that. We're bringing in guys who are bona fide all-stars and can make an impact. I look at other guys they brought in, maybe we're a little bit past their prime. Ellis Burks, Travis Fryman. How about El Presidente, Dennis Martinez, Oral Hershiser, Blackjack, Jack McDowell, to name a few. Remember, we even had Doc Gooden in the 90s.
Did we really? I've forgotten that. That has been wiped from my memory.
Oh yeah, we had Doc Gooden, and for some odd reason, I'd have to again, go back and look. No, I don't think we ever had Dennis Oil Can Boyd. Don't think we had him, but just amazing names that came through the Indians, especially in that mid '90s when they were starting to build up after the move to Jacobs Field and such. Okay, at the TV timeout, this is not looking good for the Cavs here. Down 37-26. I'm not liking this, Mike.
No, it's still early. They're, every team goes on runs. First two games, our runs were in the first and second quarters, and the Magic were in the second half, and we just held them off. We still have to go on our run. We're still only shooting 14% from three. That can't hold up. They're going to go on a run of hitting threes. Somebody's got to get hot. I don't know who it is. Maybe it's Merrill time coming up in the second half. But
JB's got to make the move. He has got to make the move. We're going to have to do something here. All right, so now let's turn our attention to the other big thing that's going on in the sports world, but has absolutely no impact on the Browns, at least not tonight. And
our penance is almost over.
Yes, it is. And next year, the Browns will have, unless something happens, unless they make a trade, they will be slated to have a first-round draft pick next year. They have been without a draft pick for 3 years, but obviously the thought was, look, if we can get our franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson, it will be worth not having a first-round pick. The downside is, or has been, Watson, the suspension, the injuries through 2 seasons has not been worth it. We all can, I think we can all agree on that. It has not worked out so far. Now, that's not to say it can't change here going into year 3. Obviously, some wholesale changes on the offensive staff. You bring in Deuce Staley, replacing Stump Mitchell. You bring in Ken Dorsey, replace Alex Van Pelt. I mean, there's some changes there. We have a new offensive line coach, for better or for worse. I think that might be a little bit for worse, but Andy Dickerson coming in and replacing Bill Callahan, a legend. We shall see what happens. But I think that it makes it even more important that Andrew Berry hit on his draft picks. This guy has got to come in ready. I think last year, you get a guy like Martin Emerson in the 3rd round. That was a huge pick. We've hit on some guys. JOK, they moved up a couple years ago to get him. I believe they got him in the 2nd round. So we are going to need to hit on our picks. Will you be upset if the Browns trade down from 54?
No, not really. That is the boring part of the draft. Anything after day 1 is just the boring part of the draft, but it's the important part of the draft too. It's like the Bill Belichick way of doing drafts, and they've kind of created a dynasty drafting that way too. So there's something to be said about it. I don't pay enough attention to the back half of the draft to really know who's good and who's not by that point. But so far, Barry has proven that he kind of knows what he's doing in the second half more than we have in the past. So I would not be upset if he traded down to get more assets.
Yeah, I guess it's just going to depend on what is out there on the board, because there have been a number of times that I've been watching the draft and you see the Browns pick is coming up. You're like, all right, here we go. And you see somebody out there and for whatever reason, they're like, nah, we're just going to let him go somewhere else. We'll move back. And then you're kicking yourself in the tuchus later on as you watch that player flourish elsewhere. But it's one of those
like drafting Watson in the first place when we could have had him instead of trading down or trading up to draft Manziel.
Yeah, that guy too. I mean, look, I looked at it. We traded up to get Quinn, traded up to get Manziel. I mean, it was not good. It was the horror show that I saw when I looked at the Browns drafts was ridiculous. It was a nightmare of all nightmares. And the moves they made, the guys they passed on, we passed on Ben Roethlisberger. We we traded down and didn't get Julio Jones. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How could we not have gotten Roethlisberger at that time? Our quarterback was Jeff Garcia. We were going
and Roethlisberger's from Ohio. Right?
Yeah, I'm like, are you kidding me? And he tortured us and tormented us for his entire career. And you never know how things are going to work out. And with that in mind, I can't tell you what the Browns should do or which position group they need to go with specifically in the 2nd round. There's certainly some roles that need to be filled. It would be nice to be able to get some more receivers, some more offense there, options for Watson. They're certainly doing their best by getting Jerry Jeudy, and you keep Amari Cooper, and we'll see how Cedric Tillman develops, as well as Elijah Moore. He started to kind of flourish and do a little bit better late in the season with Flacco when they stopped running him on these crazy reverses and end arounds, which didn't seem to do much good for him. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. And there's, again, certainly holes to fill for the Browns. In the trenches, of course, it would be nice to have some more folks there to help or be ready to fill in as some of our veterans on the offensive line, like Batonio, and I think to an extent Teller are aging.
Yeah, just like how the back half of the draft is kind of unheralded and not the sexy picks. The offensive and defensive lines are never sexy picks as well, but that's the core of your team, and that's how you get good teams. That's how you get a good running game. That's how you stop a good running game. Are those frontline guys? And you can never go wrong with drafting a high end lineman, defensive or offensive.
Jed Wilson,
Maybe. I don't. He can still be good.
He could. No, I think there's potential there. I obviously how much do you see? And maybe you don't because you are wise beyond your years, beyond my years, apparently, because you kind of stay away from the social media. But everybody's watching the all 22, and they've all got something to say on the replay about what a player did or did not do, and when they stopped doing this, and they just gave up on the play. It's like there's more to it than that, and I'm not savvy enough to know what was right or wrong per se on a play. Um, but yeah, so we shall see. I think that is questionable. Um, when it came down to it, they obviously the guy that went to I think the Jets, and I it was either the Jets or the Giants. That was one offensive lineman. He has not worked out so far, and I'm blanking on his name. The person who I think everybody wanted to pick was Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, how can you go wrong with and pardon me from like basically I'm gonna use this really I don't know. Iowa is a factory when it comes to offensive linemen. That's their style of football, and I kind of like that. They didn't go that direction. It is what it is. But one of the things you talk about, first of all, we're talking about the line and how important that is because just because you're a good quarterback, if you don't have proper protection, you're going to get destroyed. A la David Carr, a la, let's see who else, Tim Couch. I'm
Tim
trying to
Couch. That's who I was thinking. Yes.
Tim Ouch, the people that removed the C from the jersey. But yeah, I mean, you see guys that were phenomenal in college and really have all this potential, but they come into the NFL into bad situations where the offense, the team is certainly not good because they're getting drafted high by teams that have a lot of holes. And if those holes are on the offensive line and the guy's running for for his life and is getting beaten and battered all over the place, it's terrible. Not only are they getting sacked, they lose their confidence. They're doing all kinds of crazy things. I mean, Bryce Young, he's in some trouble, kids.
Yeah.
He could be in trouble time there down in Carolina. So the question is this, Mike, as we take a look here at the NFL, as we kind of turn our direction a little bit to what is currently going on or where things currently stand for the NFL draft. The Chicago Bears are sitting at number 1. Now, they are at number 1 in the number 1 spot because of the trade last year with the Panthers. So this is the Panthers pick at number 1. How bad are you going to be? How angry are you as a Panthers fan when, Bryce Young not looking so good, and you could have taken C.J. Stroud, and now you're missing out on possibly another really good quarterback in Caleb Williams. So I guess the question is here: the Bears have had a history of kind of not so great quarterbacks. I went back and I think this would be good for the listeners because if we're Cleveland fans, we are miserable and we know all about bad quarterbacks in the jersey and all that stuff. Well, let's take a look at some of the starters here for the Bears. Now, you did have some that came back year after year, but starting and let's go back to 99 because that's when the Browns came back. So Shane Matthews, Cade McNown, and Jim Miller. Cade McNown, again, that was the same draft as, Tim Couch. And how'd that turn out? Cade McNown. Yeah, real good, huh? What was he dating our friend from Ohio, Heather Kozar from Green?
Right.
Yes. The next year, 2000, McNown back again, along with Shane Matthews and Jim Miller. So the same 3. The next year, it's just Miller and Matthews. 02, you've got Miller. Then they get Chris Chandler. I believe that may have been post Atlanta. And I don't even know who Henry Burris is. 03, Cordell. Yeah, I don't know. Cordell Stewart. I mean, he had his moments. They had Chandler still, and then Sexy Rexy Grossman. That was big. 04, hey, here's a name. Here's a familiar name. Craig Krenzel. Oh, Craig Krenzel from Ohio State, along with Chad Hutchinson, Jonathan Quinn, and Rex Grossman. 05, Kyle Orton, Rex Grossman. In 06, Grossman. 7 is Grossman, Brian Greasy, and Orton. Then you get to Orton and Grossman. '09, they bring Cutler in. Cutler was very steady there from '09 through the 15 season. They did bring, eventually they drafted Jimmy Clausen, but clearly he stunk. He was another Notre Dame flop. When was the last time Notre Dame had a good quarterback? Joe Montana?
Yeah, that might be it. It's been a while.
It really has. They as glorious of a program as they have been, not so good. 16, Matt Barkley. Oh boy, he managed to last a few years and has as a backup, but not so good. Cutler and Brian Hoyer the Destroyer. And then this was great. I was just watching a video. So in 2017, with the number 2 pick, Browns with the number 1 pick, apparently there was a lot of discussion in the building 2 hours before the draft. Greg Williams revealed this on a podcast with his son. I think it's Come Get Some on the Big Play Network. And he was saying that there were some arguments and discussion about folks that wanted to get Trubisky with the number 1 and not Myles Garrett. Oh my God, talk about like that would rank right up there as one of the blunders of the century.
Thank goodness there are some adults in the room to talk him out of that.
Good pull there. Good pull. Adults in the room. We love that. We love having adults in the room there in Cleveland. But yeah, so the Bears then get Mitch Trubisky. And actually, he played pretty well, and they had some good records. I don't know if it was in the 17 season or the 18 season. They won some games.
I believe he finished his Chicago career with a winning record.
Yeah, he really didn't do that badly, but it has gone downhill from there. And eventually they move on from Trubisky, and here they come again in 2021, and they take Justin Fields. And, Fields, I looked at his numbers, and they weren't horrific. They really were not that bad. Justin Fields had 40 in his career so far, 40 passing touchdowns, 14 rushing touchdowns, and 30 interceptions. So a total of 54 total touchdowns to 30 interceptions. It's not great. And he rushed for over 1,100 yards in 2022, his second season. I mean, that itself is pretty impressive for a quarterback, especially, and it was probably as a result of the team being so bad and having such poor coaching. Matt Nagy, I believe it was Nagy, and now it's Eberflus. And, they have had some problems there, to say the least. And now they're going to be looking at the number 1. They've got the number 1 pick again, and it certainly appears it's going to be Caleb Williams. Would you be surprised if it were not Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I would be. And the question is here, who knows if he's going to be any good? I mean,
Right.
Sure. Everybody said, how many number 1 top 5 quarterbacks have fizzled out. I mean, I think we've seen it because we've been watching the draft and the Browns needing a quarterback for decades now. And there's a whole double handful of first round top 5 quarterbacks that fizzle out. So Caleb Williams, yeah, maybe the number 1 pick. He may suck in the NFL. We don't know. And it's interesting that they gave up on Justin Fields, a known quantity in the NFL, who has some talent, gave him away for nothing, and now they're going with an unknown. I don't know. I don't know if he's not like an Andrew Luck, I don't think, prospect who's a can't miss. So we'll see. I mean, probably one of these guys will pan out, but which one? Who knows?
Well, right. I mean, who's going to be the guy? You really look at it, and all we have to do is think about the fact that historically, Tom Brady, the 6th round draft pick, and now even Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft, and the success that he's having. Obviously, let's not compare Tom Brady to Brock Purdy, other than the fact that very late draft picks and come in and take over. I mean, San Francisco, wow, they made the blunder with Trey Lance, and they were very fortunate to hit on Brock Purdy. For as you said, as many guys go early in the draft, you're going to see some of those guys who were alleged like can't miss dudes have terrible careers and go nowhere. But I think, I'm looking at the draft order as it stands, and not trying not to look at the Cavs getting destroyed right now. Um, the Bears are going to go with probably 99% going to go with Caleb Williams. Washington, I think you got to go Jaden Daniels. They've had their quarterback problems. Obviously, Sam Howell, not the dude. Here's the thing: Patriots at 3. I think they're going Drake May. That's what they got to go quarterback, because unless they think they will still be bad enough, if they have to if they don't get a quarterback, but they'll still be bad enough to be at the top of the draft the next year, I think you got to go quarterback. Clearly, obviously, they have moved on from Mac Jones. He was crap Jones. And then the Cardinals, they've got Kyler locked up. When he's not playing Call of Duty or injured, he's apparently very good. But no, it would seem to me that Marvin Harrison would, as everybody has kind of predicted, would be the likely pick. And then things get a little bit interesting. Do the Chargers stay at 5, or can they move down and let somebody who's quarterback needing move up? So everybody's talking about the Vikings. Would they move up? And if so, who would they take if Williams, Daniels, and May are off the board? Are you taking McCarthy, Penix, Bo Nix? Which of those guys has it? I mean, McCarthy's obviously played with an NFL coach in Jim Harbaugh. For Penix, he was phenomenal last year, but he's had a lot of injuries. He has played a lot of ball. And Bo Nix, he's played a lot. I don't have much faith in him, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, well, if they don't pan out too, what a waste of a pick that's going to be for all those teams. It's hard to tell.
It is. It is absolutely. It is so difficult to figure these things out. And as I said, that during the baseball game, they were mocking people who do the mock draft, and I kind of have to agree. Although my son this afternoon told me he went on some site and I did a mock draft. Well, good for you. Well, that's great.
So all that being said, let me ask you this question now. Do we still hate the Deshaun Watson trade? Because we did get a known quantity for giving up 3 first-round picks of unknown quantities.
Okay, so I know this is going to be a crap answer. So if I had to say, if you put a gun to my head and said, this is it, at this moment, do we hate the trade? Yes. Yes, I do. Okay. But there is still time, and that can be corrected for, because the fact of the matter is Baker Mayfield was not going to be the guy. He had lost that locker room. He and Stefanski, I mean, there was all kinds of drama, right? So then what were you going to do? He gets mad and says, I want to trade. Well, we could have done our thing where, like with David Njoku, we're like, no, we're not trading you. But he was poisoning the locker room. Baker Mayfield was. If you get him to, if he sticks around and let's say he plays or we're mediocre at best, we're not picking in the top part of the draft. So then what are we going to get for a quarterback? We're going to get some guy who's like, it's not the top guy. It's our third choice, but we'll take him anyway. We'll give it a try. We'll go Brandon Weeden. Hey, Brady Quinn, you're still there. I don't want that. I was pleased getting a guy who had shown that he could do all of these things. So yes, right now I'm not happy with the trade. Could I change my mind after this season? Yeah, I think this is the pivotal season. What about you?
Yeah. No, I agree. I was not happy with the trade when it was made. I don't think it's panned out well for, a variety of reasons on and off the field, but it could turn out to be the right move, and we'll see. So I'm actually with you on this one.
All right. Well, we shall see. So with that, I think now it is a good time to tell everybody about what we feel we are too old for. Mike, can you tell us what you're too old for this week?
Yeah, and I'm going to stick with the NFL draft, because as I was looking at these mock drafts and who was going to get picked, here are the names that are coming up as potential draftees: Marvin Harrison, Frank Gore, Luke McCaffrey, and Brendan Rice. And what do they all have in common? I remember their dads being drafted. That's how you know you're getting old.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is 100% right on point. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I talked about the Lakers and the Nuggets series in the playoffs, and here's the I'm too old for this moment. It was the third quarter, or maybe even halftime, and this game started at what, 9 o'clock, 9:30. I wasn't about to stay up late for this. I was like, I cannot stay up for this. I was like, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose, and I missed an amazing game. I missed an amazing game. I can't stay up for these sporting events anymore. I would will myself if it was the Cavs, the Browns, Guardians. I would will myself. But other than that, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm too old for this.
I can't fault you for that.
I am definitely getting too old for this. And finally, on that note, I think that we should close with telling everybody what has us going nuclear. Mike?
Okay, well, back to this 76ers Knicks games. It's that 2-minute report. The NBA's 2-minute report, and how they said that Maxey got fouled twice on that inbound possession. I saw it. Everybody saw it from TV. How was that foul not called? And that was the game right there. It's infuriating that these, I think, obvious calls are being missed, and it's having these outcomes in playoff games. So that has me going nuclear right now.
100%, and it certainly takes away from a level of trust in the results of the games, and people questioning if there's something fishy going on, and that's not a good place to be. Talk about the Major League Baseball and the balls and strikes that are being called, and that's horrendous. But yep, 100%. That would just, I mean, if you're Philadelphia, you got to do better. But agreed, you got to make those calls. So, Mike, what has me going nuclear? Kind of interesting. So I sit here at this very desk to work every day, but I've got a work computer, right? And it's supplied by the company. And hey, that's awesome. I'm not going to gripe about that, but it's a new laptop, right? So I unplug it last week for the show, and I moved everything around and I move it back. And I'm sitting here at 11 o'clock Friday morning. And all of a sudden, in the midst of my work, my computer shuts down. What has me going nuclear is the battery life of PC laptops. I could unplug my MacBook for a whole afternoon of watching football, of streaming games. All I was sitting was working and not have a problem with the battery. Yet the PC, my battery dies. Thank goodness I didn't lose anything important. But the fact of it is, come on, man, you got to do better than this. And that is what has me going nuclear. So, Mike, I know you're going to be off for, doing some work things here the next couple of weeks. But next week, folks, be sure to tune in. Stay tuned on Twitter, on Facebook. Look for our posts. Planning on having a special guest in, and on a special day, looking at Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And we are expecting to have in the head coach of the women's soccer team at Kent State University, Rob Marinero. He's going to come in. We're going to talk about Kent State soccer. We are also going to be talking about May 25th, the Cleveland Crunch Canton Invader reunion game. And we'll get some stories from him and find out lots of those things. So be sure to follow the posts on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, etc. Mike, want to thank you again for being here. We will look forward to you getting back, and I'm sure we're going to have lots to talk about, find out what's going on with the Browns. Obviously, we got a tough night ahead of us here. We've got no draft picks, and the Cavs are stinking it up at halftime, down by 16. So we shall see where that goes. So, Mike, want to thank you again for being here.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. My pleasure, and go Cavs.
Absolutely. So for Mike Rasinski, I am Ethan Greenberg, and you've been watching Going Nuclear.